Good morning. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. It's great to have you with us. Now, we got a little bit of a little bit of that for today's show. We're going to talk about the Netflix TV show Adolescence, and we're going to then probably move on and discuss, let's see here, what do I have on the list for the day? I try to have it memorized. I just can't remember which order. We're going to talk about... I didn't know what the order of things were. There was a terrible event in which 51 Christians were murdered in Nigeria. We're going to discuss that a little bit. That'll be coming from the Christian Post. And then we're going to be talking about more details regarding the attack on Governor Shapiro, right out of Pennsylvania, the arson attack on his home, and the motive behind it, and why the media is not going to talk about it, because it doesn't fit with what they were hoping for. And then finally, we're going to look at an article from the Gospel Coalition. You know, a lot of times when I look at an article from them, I normally have nothing but negativity to say. But this one is thought-provoking, and it does bring up a good point, one that I've even said before. How in the world could we possibly be on somewhat of the same page? We'll talk about that as well. Now, there is another story out there. The family of Carmelo Anthony, the man, I'm going to say man, because when you become a murderer, you lose the plea that you are just a mere child. The man that killed Austin Metcalf, a high school student out of Texas, his family has received a ton of donations, and they are using it to buy a house because they need security and safety, because they've supposedly been receiving a lot of threats. So, with that being said, we'll talk more about that. It seems like BLM, once again, coming to the rescue to buy mansions. And it doesn't seem to be all that much about racial justice. Rather, it's just, making money. So we'll just explore some of that, but not today. That'll be a teaser for a later day. And it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get ready to dive into this topic of the Netflix show Adolescence. Now, first and foremost, let me say, I have not watched it. Now, there's several reasons. Number one, it doesn't really interest me. I'm not much of a Netflix TV show watcher, because there hasn't been a whole lot of good TV lately. Also, I don't have time. And probably, the thing is, when you become a parent, not that, we should be just watching whatever, but you can watch some things, some good old-fashioned shoot-'em-up tough guy movies, right, that you may have watched when you were, an adult without kids. But once you have kids, you kind of got to be careful what you're watching on TV. So I doubt that the show would be something that, for one, my son would even be interested in watching, because he's really the only one that can hear and listen and comprehend words, right? And then also, it's probably just not appropriate, probably some of the language and stuff like that. So I have not watched it, but that doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion on it. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to primarily rely on this article from the Daily Wire, because Matt Walsh did watch it. And there is, like I said, this British show. It is kind of a mini-series. I think it's like 4 pages. 4 pages. four episodes. And it's called Adolescence. Now, it is, let me tell you up front, it is a fictional TV show. So here is a screenshot of it. The boy who is one of the main characters. I don't know if that's the father or who that is, but it is a fictional TV show. Let me say it again. It's a fictional TV show. The plot of the story is fictional. The characters are fictional. It is not based off of any people who actually exist. There is no live video that is used or actual real-life footage that is used. It is a fictional TV show. No different than, I don't know, whatever TV show that you used to watch back in the day. So let's talk about the basic premise of this TV show. I've heard a number of people talk about it. Now, first and foremost, I'm not going to be talking about the show as far as like its quality, right, of how it's made. Apparently, it's actually pretty good quality. It's Each episode is essentially one long take, okay? That's how the show works. There's not a bunch of cut scenes or anything. Like, it's played out just all as if it's in real time, okay? Which is quite a feat, because the actors, they've got to be able to memorize the lines, and you got to get it right, because, hey, if you get it wrong, well, however, long you're recording, that's time wasted. So I'm not going to speak to the quality of its production. There's a lot of movies and TV shows that they look good. The new Star Wars movies, for example, they look good, but they're terrible concerning their plot and basically everything else. So it's received a lot of praise for its simple production style and its quality, but there's much more beneath the surface. So first of all, the show is about a 13-year-old boy, okay? And 13-year-old boy in Britain. And essentially, it starts out, he's being questioned, and I think maybe it's by a counselor at the beginning, but he's being questioned about this stabbing of a girl, a female classmate. And I haven't seen any of it, but like I said, the picture, the boy that you see and everything, like, he looks like a very innocent kid. Like, there's no way that this boy would have done it. He just looks like a normal kid. Here is the boy, for example, who is the character here, right? You just think there's no way. He's just a young 13-year-old boy. There's no way that he could be this murderer, right? Comes from a good home. Mother and father are loving, and they have a stable job and everything else. Well, the big plot twist here. So here's your spoiler, right? So you're being warned right now if you want to watch this show for some reason. So here's your chance to pause it. I don't know why you would, but there you go. I gave you your warning. It turns out he did it. Yeah, this 13-year-old boy who looks very innocent, acts very innocent, acts scared, timid. He is a murderer. He murders a female classmate. Now, why did he do this? So the motives behind it are that he likes her, smitten with her, whatever term you want to use for 13-year-olds, and she has no interest in him, right? She rejects him. And then she begins taunting him online, making fun of him online, social media, what have you, and calls him an incel. Incel is a popular term now that's often used for, I'm not even an expert on the terminology. I know Jordan Peterson has spoken to this some, but a lot of men who are not good with women, who are not good socially, maybe not considered appealing or attractive to women, and are considered, like socially awkward and kind of an outcast, right? That's kind of a basic term, I guess, that you could use there. And there's probably some other more negative connotations there that I really don't need to go into. But that's what he's called. And so the boy is, very negatively impacted in this way. But that's not the only factors that are going into play here in this plot line, right? So you've got the boy who, like I said, looks very innocent. He's a white kid. His parents are loving and nurturing, and the last one you'd expect, right, to commit this horrible stabbing. Well, here is how this innocent young boy becomes a murderer. The show really emphasizes how a lot of his influence came from online interactions, okay? Yeah, the young boy has a friend who turns him to internet personalities, and it promotes the misogyny content, right? And it radicalizes him to hate women, to be extremely aggressive, extremely violent. And so here he is, this innocent young kid. Parents think that there's nothing wrong, and yet he's online and his head is being filled with all of this radicalized, misogynist, hateful, violent ideology, okay? Here's where, as I think about it, there is a little bit, okay, a little bit of truth sprinkled into this, which is why it's a very important matter, because you do, as a parent, you need to care what your children are seeing online, okay? I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to navigate it, because my kids are going to likely probably be in a public school, right? At some point, at least, when they get older, maybe. Because I hope they're involved in activities. So whether that's baseball, basketball, FFA, stuff like that, some kind of school activities, they're going to be gone, and I'll need to communicate with them. And in today's time, having cell phones is a great benefit, great advantage. But you need to be very careful about letting them have access to a cell phone, having access to a phone or computer they can use privately, as opposed to using it, in the family living room, things like that, because they can absolutely find things that they shouldn't be able to, and shouldn't be able to access. So it is a very important topic that as parents, you've got to be aware of how dangerous the internet is. My parents grew up, or my parents didn't grow up. My parents grew up really before it was a problem, but they had to deal with us. And like, when were we going to get smartphones? Like, I wasn't allowed to have certain things like Snapchat on my phone. And so, with all that being said, it is an important discussion. It's an important matter, and kids' lives have been greatly harmed by being exposed to things on the internet. Nobody's arguing that. I think the average exposure to pornography now is like 10, 11 years old, something like that. I mean, it's horrifying. Here's where the show, however, really fails to be accurate to what's really going on. You see, you think about movies and TV shows that are the most impactful. It's movies and TV shows that are really based like upon reality. Think about Red Dawn, for instance. Okay, I'm not talking about the remake. I'm talking about the the 1980s one. Red Dawn came out, and what was it? It was Russia, the Soviet Union attacks the United States. I mean, that was like a very real thing. Okay, and the scenario, how a lot of it kind of plays out is hey, all the grown men are captured and taken prisoner, and it's just this very kind of scary show, right? Scary movie to think about. And there's a lot of those, right, that are based upon a lot of reality. That's one reason why the movie Civil War, do you remember that? This was back during the election. The movie Civil War, 2024, so last year. There's a reason why it didn't have much of an impact, because I think I don't know if they were afraid of offending people or what, but it just wasn't realistic, because there was an alliance between California and Texas, okay? If you're going to try to really have an impactful movie, you've got to base it on more realistic situations, right? It's got to feel more grounded in reality. Well, here's where this TV show from Netflix really leaves reality behind. So, first of all, the creators of this show wanted to tell this story because they feel like it's a serious problem, right? Of misogynistic, hyper violent male culture. Okay? Now, how real is that? You probably heard of Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is a personality, hyper masculine. Don't don't be a sissy. I'll use those words, right? And don't let the progressive modern ideology rule the day. Men need to be in charge, right? Kind of that mentality. And boys do flock to that because all they're told all day is how bad they are for being boys and that girls are better than them at everything. So when they have somebody saying, no, it's not true, you should stand up for yourself, you should be a man and, be in charge, they do respond to that. Andrew Tate is mentioned in this TV show, used as kind of one of those that radicalizes him. So here's where the problem comes in, though, in this fictional TV show. There are serious problems in Britain right now with violence. Stabbings even, right? The whole show's about how a young boy stabs this female classmate. The problem is most of the violence being committed, these stabbings, it's not being done by 13-year-old white boys. It's being done in a large part by Muslim immigrants, extremists, minorities. And so this show is not reflecting reality. What they wanted to do is they wanted to try to make a statement about the dangers of radicalization online, but do they follow the real story of like what's really going on? No, not really. I mean, you can just look at the crime statistics and see. I mean, I don't know. Let's just see. Let's see if the internet is honest here. Stabbing in Britain. Let's just do a search for that. So, remember the killer who stabbed 3 teenage girls in like the dance studio? This was not done by some teenage white boy who had good parents and a good raising. It was done by Axel Radakubana. When these 3 girls were murdered in this dance studio. I mean, do you remember this story? Do you recall this being very recent? Here's the sketch here of the court sketch of Axel Radakubana. He's 18 years old. I'm trying to remember. I don't know that he was actually illegal immigrant, but I think his parents maybe were possibly immigrants. I'm not sure exactly on the details there, so I'm not speaking with certainty on that. But he absolutely did hold to an ideology, but you know what he wasn't? Radakubana was born in Wales to Rwandan immigrants. There you go. So here's the article from AP News. He murdered 3 girls ages 6 to 9. And so here's the thing. Stabbings do take place in the UK. They take place in the... They do take place in Britain, but the problem is it's not being done in the way that they are depicting it in this show, because that would not fit their message, right? Because the idea is white people are really the problems. I mean, that's really is the mentality so much of the issue at hand. It's that all problems can be boiled down to white supremacy, that it's impossible for a person of color, a minority, to be considered actually criminal. So here they are trying to make a statement in this TV show, but they're having to make up a fictional story. The truth is, while granted, any kid can be negatively impacted by radicalized propaganda on the internet, the things that help prevent children from going down those paths are loving mothers and fathers, a good Christian worldview, and parents being married, all those things. And statistically, young white teenage boys are not committing a great level of crime. If we're just talking about statistics, I mean, we could go to the FBI for the United States and we could look at all of the data, right, that shows violent crime and the ratios, the percentages among different ethnicities. If they really wanted to tell an accurate story, and the writers of the show, you can actually read that they didn't want there to be any excuses like, oh, well, the reason this happened was because his parents were divorced or because his father was abusive or his mother was a drinker. Okay, fine. I get you're trying to say it could happen to anyone, but they did have to pick the ideal situation. I get you have the argument, that's the point, it can happen to anybody. Okay, but in modern times, that's all we're seeing in TV shows. Watch any modern TV show or movie, the white male is the problem. The white male is the problem. And it is always the woman or the person of color who is the good person. Just watch and see how many movies the antagonist is just a white male, or at least the white male is a bumbling idiot. Now, if that's all they did, we could just brush it off essentially as a, we could brush it off as like, yep, that's Netflix and Hollywood and the entertainment industry doing what they do best, right? Here's where things are getting insane, though, okay? Here's where this is crazy. The British government and the creators of this show are actually wanting this to become mandatory in British schools, that if you go to public schools, you have to watch this. And they're not using the term TV show. Like we said at the very beginning, this is a fictional TV show. Okay? There are some people referring to this as a documentary. A fictional TV show being referred to as a documentary, as if this actually happened. That this is telling you the exact same thing of what always happens, right? Young white boys being radicalized on the internet and murdering female classmates. The problem will never be fixed until they get to the heart of the real problem. That's the big message here. If you really did, because Britain does have a problem with violence and stabbings. Why they have a problem with stabbings? Because they have made it harder to get guns. Okay, great. So you really solved the murder problem, didn't you? It's almost like it doesn't matter. They banned katanas too, like swords. You can't own swords, and they'll just continue to ban everything until they ban rocks. And I guess they'll start banning fists. You got to cut your hands off. If you really want to fix the problem, you've got to start being honest about the situation. Who are the ones that are causing the majority of the crimes? Are they coming from loving homes where a mother and father are married to each other and they have a religious Christian background? The vast majority of violent offenders, murderers, are not fitting that description. It is mother and father are not married or divorced The father is not involved in the kids' lives. The mother has all sorts of her own problems, addiction, things like that, and probably don't have a strong religious foundation. Those are the ones that are most susceptible to being violent and criminal, if we're just looking at statistics. So they're taking the show Adolescence, claiming it to be some extremely accurate presentation. They're using words like documentary, as if you need to watch this because this is what's really happening. And they're not accurately reflecting the problem. Once again, if they would have just left it as a TV show, we all would have shrugged our shoulders and said, yeah, that's about right. Another woke message about how white people are bad. But now they're trying to claim it's all true. It's all true. It's just nothing but propaganda. And then eventually when another person of minority stabs and murders another teenage girl, are they going to come out and make any statement about it? No. We're talking about things on this show that are very controversial and that people do not like. I do want to take a quick moment to mention we are losing subscribers on the channel right now. I don't know why, but check your subscription. Make sure that you're still subscribed. We were at 9,400 something subscribers, and we're down. We've lost around 25 subscribers over the past couple of days. I don't know if it's something that we recently said on Shields and Arrows that got us a little bit in trouble, or what the deal is. I really don't know. But with that being said, just so you know, you may want to check, make sure you're still subscribed. I know we've had some of our loyal followers be unsubscribed before. So just be sure to keep an eye on that, okay? Don't know what Netflix, YouTube is trying to accomplish here. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Another very, very sad story. This is coming from the Christian Post. So in Nigeria, there is a population of Christians there. However, there's also a number of radical Muslim villages, peoples that are there. And so Nigeria this month, there was an attack on Monday, so 2 days ago, on a Christian community, and it has resulted in the death of 51 people, men, women, children. They were attacked by a Fulani herdsman, so group that lives near it, Zeki village in Kwal district, if any of you are familiar with Nigeria and its location. And so they attacked the village. Some 51 have been killed. So as on Friday, a suspected herdsman killed 3 members of a family in predominantly Christian Zagu village, Miango district, also in Basa County, said community leader Sam Jugo. He identified the victims as, and I don't know how to pronounce these names, Weyi Geba, 56, and his sons, Zeu Wei, 25, and Henry Wei, 16. So also in Basan, herdsmen raided 3 predominantly Christian villages last Tuesday night, so this is a week ago, killing 2 people, said Joseph Chodu Yonkpa, a community leader in Basa's Miango district. Barely 24 hours after we had laid to rest our beloved brethren of Hora village, I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these names, killed by Fulani militias. These same herdsmen have launched 3 separate deadly attacks on our communities in the night of April 8th. Youngpa said in a statement. So the sad thing is, this story is not exactly anything new. Around this time, around Easter, right? Good Friday, some people use that term, or Palm Sunday. Everything leading up to resurrection observation, right? Remembrance. It is very common for there to be Christians killed all over the world. primarily though in Africa, the Middle East, sometimes in Asia, places like that. It's not a big news story. You're not going to see it being run on the main page of New York Times, MSNBC, even Fox News. I don't think that Fox News even has this on their main page right now. Doesn't look like it. A bunch of stuff about J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, of course. This just goes to show you that anytime that there is like a hint, supposedly, of anti-Islamic sentiments in the United States or anywhere else, right? This is a national news story, how terrible that we have this anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim ideology. And it's just as simple as saying, like, why is it that most terrorists are Muslim? Like things like that, you know, oh, how terrible, you're so anti-Muslim. And then when Christians are murdered by Muslims, like nobody even like raises an eyebrow. Christianity really is the like one world religion that it's not a major scandal to commit atrocities against. If there was somebody who did something extremely anti-Hindu, for example, that would be all over the news. Anti-Buddhist, all over the news. Anti-Jewish, all over the news. And yet, it's always Christianity, that there are Christians being killed all over the world. They make you, you know, they really want to depict it like it's only Islamic people who receive any kind of persecution. They specifically focus like on Gaza, as if there's not Muslims that live in Israel itself who have actually a very good quality of life living in Israel. They really like to focus on like, oh, how terrible it was that the people of Gaza, or some of the more progressive ones maybe, and try to point out like the mistreatment of Iran, people like that. Who knows? But once again, I just want to remind you that Christians are killed around the world on a regular basis, and nobody's up in arms about it. Nobody's upset about it. Plain and simple. It doesn't fit the narrative that they want to promote, the narrative that they want to push. Okay, now moving on to another narrative that the left is not going to want to push. This is coming from CNN. I decided to actually use them for once because this is probably going to be the only thing you're ever going to see again concerning the arson attack on Governor Josh Shapiro's house. So a suspect in arson at Pennsylvania governor's home targeted the governor for his views on war in Gaza, Warren says. I wonder exactly what he had to say. Was he so angry that Governor Shapiro was not supportive enough of Israel? And so if he was just more angry right-winger MAGA, that everything would be better? I don't think so. No, actually on the contrary. So here is Cody Balmer, who, once again, kind of a normal name, Cody Balmer, but definitely trying to, like, definitely the look says, hey, I want to look like a terrorist. Anytime you have like a long, like, mangy looking beard like that, like you're basically saying, yeah, I'm trying to pull off the terrorist look. So Cody Balmer, the man accused of setting fire to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence, he gave his statement. So it says the warrant, first reported by news site Penn Live, said Balmer called 911 early Sunday morning after the fire at the governor's residence, and said Shapiro needs to know he will not take part in his plans for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people. Balmer also told 911 operators Shapiro needed to stop having my friends killed and that our people have been put through too much by that monster, the warrant said. One warrant notes Balmer's intonation and cadence sounded like he was possibly reading from a script, according to Penn Live. CNN has not reviewed that document. So here's the thing. If this is actually what happened, if it is because Balmer is angry that Shapiro has voiced support for Israel's war on Gaza, this story is going to go nowhere, all right? Just like any other time that there's a story that the left doesn't like, potential mass killer stopped by armed civilian, like those stories never go anywhere. It's only the stories that they want to promote, right? So Islamophobia accusations, possible right-wing violence. Why is it, guys, most of the time when you see violence, it is on the left? That's it. What really is like the one example they have? There's a reason why they have to continue to cry January 6th over and over and over again, because that's their one story. And even on January 6th, the only person that was killed that day was Ashley Babbitt, one of the protesters. You could use the word rioter, I guess, if you wanted to. But I mean, how much of a riot is it if like half the people are getting let in with doors wide open by the Capitol security? So once again, another story that, we almost had it. We almost had an example of right-wing violence, and no, he turns out to be a radical Palestinian supporter. So once again, the poor mainstream media hoping to have their big story of how terrible conservative right-wingers attacking the Democrat governor. You know, there were some who were saying that this may really help propel Governor Shapiro to the top for the Democrat ticket in 2028. Something tells me this story's not going to get it done, all right? That he's not going to be at the top of the ticket. It does make me wonder, do the Democrats actually have the, the willingness to allow it for what he is, right? At least Shapiro does seem to be a practicing Jew to some degree. I mean, I think at least he was observing Passover, I think, when all that was going on. I don't know. I can't speak to everything about his personal actions and beliefs. But do they have the willingness to even let a Jew to the top of the ticket? I mean, I guess I'm just going to be very blunt about it. I don't know. Who do they got, guys? If you're looking at right now the polling for the Democrat Party, Democrat presidential polling, primary polling. Let's see like how things are sitting right now. So so this is from ABC News. No, that's not what I want to use there. It's not really telling me much. Let's see here. Here's from race to the White House. Let's see if this has much information. Okay, so 2028 as of April 15th, okay? Right now, Kamala Harris is sitting at 30.6%. I think that's going to go down. I think that that's all carryover support. I don't think that she's going to actually get it. I don't know. She may try to run again. She may. But I don't think it's going to be Kamala Harris, okay? Tim Walz is a joke. No. So let's just go ahead and just, for right now, okay, and you tell me, give me your thoughts. Do you think Kamala Harris may try to run and be at the top of the ticket? Possibly. But for right now, let's just X out Kamala Harris. Let's X out Tim Walz, okay? Like, those guys are going nowhere. So here's what that leaves us with. So look at this. Ocasio-Cortez, she's been campaigning with Bernie, all the Bernie bros. She's sitting at 11.3%. She's a major threat, guys, okay? She's a major threat. So there she is right there. Pete Buttigieg, I don't know. I don't know if he's got it. I don't think that he looked really, I guess, impressive to some people back in the day, but I think his days may be done, but let's go ahead and leave him in the mix. So there's AOC, Mayor Pete, Gavin Newsom. Keep an eye on Gavin Newsom. He's trying to play a little bit more moderate here lately. Now, those chickens will probably go home to roost because he's a radical, absolutely through and through. So Tim Walz is out. Cory Booker, remember the guy who made the really long speech for really no reason because it wasn't a filibuster, but he really wanted to do something. Cory Booker, and then there's Josh Shapiro sitting at 4.7%. And then some of the others down there that don't make it quite on the list, at least, the main list. Mark Kelly, Jon Stewart, Jasmine Crockett. Oh, goodness gracious. The only person that may be worse to listen to than Kamala Harris is Jasmine Crockett. Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Mark Cuban, Andy Beshear, and Amy Klobuchar. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I don't think Kamala Harris. I really don't. So don't read the 30.6% polling average for Kamala as a good sign. Okay, I think the Democrats are probably done with her. She lost. She lost big to Trump. So don't picture her as a threat. But we'll be interested to see. So, unfortunately, the arson attack that maybe some people thought Governor Shapiro would be able to use to propel him forward in his polling in his race for 2028, because I think he will run probably. I don't know if that's going to help him because it turned out to just be a radical Palestinian supporter. Now, let's go ahead and move on to this article from the Gospel Coalition. Okay, so the Gospel Coalition is very cool, very hip. All the kids like to follow them. This is actually, I think, from today, April 16th. So Derek Rishmoe, I have no idea how you even say that name. But here's the title of the article here, and I think it's interesting here. First of all, every vibe shift is in the Lord's hand. So let's just... The Gospel Coalition is Calvinist. So let me first note, this part right here, I mean... I know the Calvinists have kind of a small mind when it comes to God, because if God hasn't caused everything to happen, then how can he possibly be God? That's their logic. We say God is sovereign and he can do what he wants, include make free-willing creatures and allow those creatures to make choices that result in what may come. And guess what? God is also so great in his power and knowledge that man can try to do whatever they want, but the things God has decreed, he will bring about. So there will come a day when Christ comes and reigns on the throne. There ain't nothing we can do about it. But in the meantime, man can absolutely do a lot of stuff that it's not like God wants it to happen. So every vibe shift is in the Lord's hands. That's an interesting statement, first and foremost, because I wasn't really intending to be that negative on this article, but I can't help it. It's the Gospel Coalition. They're annoying. So if we had a vibe shift, right? Which basically what vibe shift means for those of you who don't use goofy language. Vibe shift essentially means, hey, what's the culture like right now? What are the winds doing, right? So that's the matter at hand there, essentially. But every single one, so if like we move to a very much an atheistic, anti-God vibe, is that God's will, that we be anti-God, pro-atheist? It's just Calvinism likes to say things, and they think it sounds super good, and then it's just silly. Silly, silly, silly. All right, here we go. For months now, since before the latest economic upheaval, much cultural conversation has revolved around a vibe shift in the United States and other corners of the world. What exactly is the vibe shift? It's hard to identify a single factor. So I think that we can all agree, yeah, there has been a more of a cultural shift, okay? If we went back to like 2013, 2014, it was very cool to be a Democrat, right? You had Barack Obama, he's so cool. The Democrats are modern, and the Republicans are just old, angry white men, right? It's kind of was the picture there. And so, hey, you're young, you're cool, you're hip, you're a Democrat. But there is a shift now. Now it's, remember we talked about this, like masculinity is like exclusively a right-wing thing. Like it's in, like if you're a male, if you're a 20-something-year-old male, 30-something-year-old male, it is embarrassing to say that you're a Democrat, because then people are just going to assume that you're like, you're homosexual. Just being brutally honest. I will remind you, we are going live on Worshify if you want to go over there in case YouTube decides to kick us off because we say too many things that upset them and offend them. But it's not cool to be a Democrat. It's cool to be a conservative, because conservatives, we're masculine, we eat meat, we don't eat, we're not vegetarians, we lift weights, we do UFC, we we shoot guns, all sorts of things, right? So that's the cool thing that you want to be. And it's true for even the girls, too. It's not even like it's just a male fascination, all right? It's cool to be like a conservative woman, right? To be feminine, not to be, this weird nose-pierced, like even there's this, move now against like tattoos, like all over your arms and stuff. Like people are like, hey, yeah, maybe that's not the best thing in the world. It's not that if you've went and done that thing that, you're irredeemable. You're saved by grace through faith, even if you have tattoos on your arms. But hey, maybe a girl's prettier if she just doesn't have herself covered in tattoos. I know, I'm being very offensive today. But anyways, so there is this cultural shift going on. And the Gospel Coalition, they are acknowledging it. Yeah, we're seeing it, a more traditional ideology, okay? And so, tied to a number of things, Trump's been elected a second time, right? The Donald Trump celebration dance. It's not cool to be woke. It's cool to be anti-woke. You've also got kind of, in the Gospel Coalition mentions this, others point to shifts in popular culture, the appearance of Christians and even apologists on podcasts like the Joe Rogan Experience, and the popularity of these podcasts over and above legacy media, X's transformation under Elon Musk, and backlash and controversies around prominent voices from the Me Too and Black Lives Matter movements, and the waning deluge of ad campaigns from woke capital. They also note a rise in Bible sales in the United Kingdom, and then increase, at least an interest in belief of God amongst celebrities and intellectuals, things like that. So they are noting, yes, we are seeing a vibe shift, a cultural shift is what I want to use. I don't want to talk like a Zoomer, right? This is a very good thing, okay? I really think so. Now, I've talked about this before. I have said I do have some concerns, however, about the conservative position as it stands today, because where are we going to go? Are we going to make... Let's just take Elon Musk, who used to be someone who saw himself as, socially liberal, quite liberal, but now he has come over to being right-wing. Now, he's only right-wing, he says, because the left has went so far that where he used to stand middle left, now he's finding himself standing on the right side of things. What's going to happen? Is Elon Musk going to make the right wing more progressive, right? So like the far, the base of conservatism moved to the left, which has happened a lot. I mean, used to remember when conservatives actually had a backbone and like defended traditional marriage, and now they don't defend traditional marriage anymore. And Republicans are nothing more than Democrats from 10 years ago. Is that going to be what happens? Which I'm worried it absolutely could be. And think about the people we've allowed in, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Joe Rogan endorsed Trump. These were socially liberal people who are now affiliating with conservatism, republicanism, right-wingism, whatever it is, right? Trumpism, whatever terms we want to go with. The question is, and the Gospel Coalition article raises this, conservative, right-wing, or what, right? What is the cultural shift? Are we right-wing? Is it genuinely conservative? Because they point out some people, right? So Dave Portnoy, who is more on he doesn't identify as liberal. He's not woke. At the same time, he is pro-choice. He's all about marijuana legalization, and he doesn't really care about like homosexuality and things like that. So he's not a fundamental conservative by any stretch of the imagination. Elon Musk, for example, he's got a lot of kids with a lot of women. I think some of them are been conceived through AI, artificial insemination. Maybe even had some of his, the genetics screened, right, for his children. So, I mean, how conservative is Elon Musk? And then you do have like Andrew Tate that the article mentions, who does have a little bit of a platform in some circles on, I guess, some right-wing groups. And, you know, his appeal is masculinity, lifting weights, you know, don't be a punching bag for, you know, women who disrespect you, things like that. But Tate is absolutely known to be, you know, like he's involved in pornography, maybe, you know, like sex trafficking. He's been accused of that. A lot of other stuff, right? And nothing that we would want to say is, you know, good or acceptable by any means. So what are we going to do, right? How are we going to, which way? Are we going to go more right? In which case we're going to bring the Elon Musks, the Dave Portnoys, the Joe Rogans, whoever, we're going to take them with us further to the right, or are we going to let them drag us more to the center? I think we really have a good chance to bring a lot of people further to the right. Because, and by further to the right, I just mean getting back to fundamental moral values, right? Plain and simple. Because you've got to look at correlation. Not that correlation always means causation, but everything the left touches turns to, I mean, absolute chaos. The left touches the border. Guess what? Now we're filled with a bunch of MS-13 gang members. They touch sports, and now we've got full-grown men beating up girls in, you know, basketball, what have you. The left touches the military. Now we've lost all our masculine men, and now we're making commercials for the military about how Emma has 2 mommies, and that's very intimidating and will certainly scare Russia and China. So everything the left touches, they absolutely they ruin. They've ruined marriage. They've ruined a lot of things. I think it just takes time. Let's think about. Let's go ahead and swing this into a theology for a moment, like rightly dividing the Bible. It is not easy to get someone to, it's not easy to get somebody to take the whole right division brochure initially, but you can get them started, right? You can at least get them to see, you know, yeah, okay. Israel did have to keep the law. I think that's a pretty easy one to make a case with, right? I have some friends who disagree with me on right division, but I have had enough success to get most of them to admit, yeah, Israel really did have to keep that law. You can't get around it. It wasn't just for show. You did have to do it. Okay. So you're agreeing that at some point, though, we're not under, yes, at some point we're not under the law. So what changed? Well, Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. Yep, I agree. That's that is the means by which we cannot be under the law anymore. But when did that happen? Well, I guess it didn't happen before, because you had to have it. Yeah, you're right. So look at Jesus' words when he's ministering prior to his death and resurrection. Yeah, you're right. He's saying a lot of things that are about Israel keeping the law. Exactly. So when do you think it happened? Well, I guess it happened after he died and rose again. Yeah, the problem is when you see some of that stuff in Acts, a lot about what the apostles said in the early chapters of Acts. I mean, it's kind of Israel focused still, isn't it? Yeah, I guess you're right. What do you think? What if we push it back a little bit further? You know, where do you see something different? Well, Cornelius seems different. Yeah, Cornelius does seem a little bit unique, but when you look at the details, Cornelius was still a part of what was told before, that the gospel of the kingdom would go to all nations, and he was a man who still blessed Israel, believed in the God of Abraham. Yeah, you're right. Well, really, what changes? I guess nothing really seems that different until Paul comes along and says, now there's forgiveness of sins outside of the law. That's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah, that is a big deal. And notice the shift from Paul. See how we progress there as I'm reaching the end of my demonstration there. It takes time. You've got to get them to accept, yeah, we probably don't get new revelation today. The Word of God is God's complete revelation. God's just not working today like he has in the past. There's not prophets being called. There's not the miracles being performed like there once were. When you get them to take the baby steps, then you can get them to slowly go from there. I think that maybe it's possible we're seeing some people, very influential people like Elon Musk and such, taking the baby steps, right? They are rejecting large authoritarian left-wing governance. Now, Trump's signing a lot of executive orders, and I'm not super crazy about all that. I think our government's way too big. It's got to be reduced. But there is the sentiments, though, like, yeah, hey, government's way too big. And even Elon Musk has made stuff, mention of like keeping your guns, holding on to your guns, things like that. So the Gospel Coalition actually does have a little bit of a thought-provoking article there. The problem is they do try to tie it into God's control over things, right? Trusting God amid the vibes. Your preaching and teaching of the law and gospel need to be rooted more deeply in something much firmer than your capacity to catch the current wave of public opinion. That's interesting. What do they mean by law there? Teaching of the law? I mean, are we talking about just like the law that we live under as Americans? Like the Constitution? Or what do they mean by the law? See, and that's the problem there. They like to put themselves under the law way too often. Remember, God is sovereign, Lord of history. See, that's where you got to be careful, because then you're just going to give credit to God for things that he simply isn't responsible. Don't blame God for... It's not God's fault that abortions take place. And that mentality, I think, leads to that. So it's interesting to see. We'll see how the vibe shifts, right? Are we going more conservative? Are we going more progressive? I think we have a good chance to make people go more conservative. Read a couple comments from y'all today. Carolyn says, I live in Kentucky, and Andy is our current governor. He says he is Christian, but supports anything but Christian views. Yeah. Andy, his name's on the list here. Andy Bashir. It's crazy that Kentucky has a Democrat governor. That's the problem. I mean, it's just the chickens always come home to roost. So, doesn't matter what they say. If they're a part of the party, folks, they're gonna get in line. Yeah, maybe I can get him out of there at some point. Let's see here. Let's see here. Who's that right there? Buttigieg is climbing a little bit. AOC is on the climb, though, looking at just like the different polling there. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top in the Democrat Party. Mr. Evanson says a cultural shift would be to punish evil. Ecclesiastes 8:11, Proverbs 22:15. There's some Old Testament principles there. I think that we need to see justice being done before I'll feel really good, about things. Hopefully we see how this trial of Carmelo Anthony plays out once we get all the details. So far, I've heard nothing in the details, the report, that suggests that it's a justifiable act by him using that knife. Oh, yeah, so he's going to run for president because he's term limited out as governor. Okay. Do you think Kentucky will go to a Republican governor after him, Carolyn? Or do you think that there's another Democrat in line that may be able to get that seat, or the governor's mansion, whatever term you want to use? All right. Hey, great to have everybody on today. Myra, Rick, Sydney, Dr. Campbell, Kitty, Luke's with us, Toby, Isaiah, great to have you, Mary, Mom, appreciate you as well. Mr. Edmondson, really enjoy having all of you on with us. Let's see here. Tonight, I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek. We're going to be going live for our Wednesday night studies, and we're going to be talking about, is Satan bound today? That's going to be the question that we're going to, this question we're going to be asking, we're going to be exploring. I've got a little bit of a chart here that I've been making. It's kind of messy, but anyways, looking at Satan's activity throughout the Bible and trying to determine, hey, what is going on right here, right? What's going on inside this mystery age? To what degree can Satan do things? We know that he's bound for 1,000 years in the millennial age. Obviously, some people would interpret that to be the age we're in now, but that's because they don't understand their Bible. But what's going on today, right? What's going on here? That'll be the big question that we need to explore tonight. So hopefully you're excited about it. Carolyn's talking about governor in Kentucky. I hope so. I work in state government and truly don't think our state can handle another 4 years of Democratic governor and not bankrupt. Yep. Yeah. Need your own Doge in there. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you all joining me. Hope that you... You've been looking at me, looking at the screen. But hey, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We'll see you tonight. We'll be going live around 6:30. Hopefully you can join us then. In the meantime, here in about 30 minutes, go over to Ask the Theologian, our good friend Dr. Randy White. He is going live to answer your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. And tomorrow is Theology Thursday, where I will answer your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. Thank you all so much. We'll see you tomorrow.